You are listening to Middle East Monitor Conversations, bringing you lively discussions with prominent voices from the region and beyond, as we delve deeper into issues shaping the Middle East and North Africa, from politics, the culture, and the arts.
Hello and welcome to another conversation with the Middle East Monitor. My name is Nasim Ahmed and I will be your host for today's discussion. And what a discussion I hope this will be. I am going to be talking about the Gaza-bound flotilla that was attacked by Israeli drones last week. And I am joined by Ann Wright. Anne's been a retired US Army colonel and an activist, and I'm hoping she will give us the lowdown on what exactly happened and correct some of the miscommunication that is out there. So, Anne, thank you for joining me. Really pleasure to have you on our conversation.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you all for giving us an opportunity to speak about the horrific, terrible thing of an unarmed civilian ship getting bombed, for God's sakes, right off the shores of Malta. I mean, European territory being bombed now.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, how are you and the rest of the Freedom Flotilla crew doing at the moment?
Well, those of us that were the participants waiting on land to join the ship, we are fine. However, the 6 participants that were on the ship and the 12-person crew, are shell-shocked. Who would have thought that the ship that they were carrying, that they were on, would actually be bombed from the air in this day and time? The audacity, the impunity of whoever did it, and we have a sneaking suspicion we know who it is, that they feel that they can bomb unarmed civilian ships in European territory, taking the wars that they do in the Middle East right up to the shores of Europe.
I mean, you mentioned you have a sneaky feeling you know who it is. What makes you confident that it was Israel? Of course, many of us are speculating, and what led you to believe that it was Israel?
Well, the history of the flotillas. I've been a part of the flotilla community since 2010, and of course that was the year that the Israeli attack on the Marvi Marmara, the ship carrying 600 people, killed 10 people, wounded 50, and each one of the 7 ships of that flotilla were attacked and people were beaten up and tasered on all of the ships. And of the 35 other ships that have been part of the flotilla initiative over the last 15 years, we've been attacked every time. And it's always been by the Israelis. So one would surmise that probably this time around it is the Israelis. And we're doing an investigation on various levels, a forensic investigation of who was in the air around the Conscience ship around that time, trying to find pieces of the explosive that blew apart part of the ship. So we're more likely to say that we know who it is than say the state of Malta, who's still playing games on that one.
Yeah, we will get to the state of Malta and its role and why it's still playing games. I mean, just to for viewers who have not been following the story, it's been hard to follow this story unless you search this story out. Partly because there is a media blackout, it's as though nothing had happened. This is an attack on international waters against a humanitarian vessel, which should spark outrage and media coverage wall to wall. I mean, we see how governments in the West have responded. Say, for example, the Houthis attacking ships on international waters, and that's caused outrage. And the US has launched missiles at the Houthis, and Yemen, so has the Brits. So, but there's been no coverage of this. So, to give our viewers a more clear picture, I mean, do we know exactly what happened, who was on board, and what kind of injuries have been sustained? Can you just tell us a bit about the facts as they are at the moment?
Yes, the ship called the Conscience, which is named for the conscience that we all ought to be having about the genocide that's going on in Gaza right now, the Israeli genocide and the ethnic cleansing that's going on in the West Bank. The name Conscience really is the right one for what we're trying to do, which is bring attention to the genocide and the ethnic cleansing. And the method that we use is by using a vessel, a ship, filling it with as much humanitarian cargo of food and materials as possible, and then sailing it toward Gaza and hoping we can get through. But in the 16 years we've been doing this, since 2008, only 5 ships have ever gotten in, and those were all during 2008. Starting in 2009, no ships have been able to hit the shores of Gaza. They've all been intercepted in international waters by the Israeli forces.
So you mentioned the Mavi Marmara, which was an attack by Israeli troops in 2010. This was a major global incident. And since then, of course, Israel has carried out so many atrocities against the Palestinians. Palestinians are, as we know, are under a genocidal campaign, and Israel has become more and more emboldened and almost feels a sense of impunity. It can go about doing what it wants. So, given this scenario, did you really expect, or did your team, did they expect to be able to reach Gaza this time? Given how things have changed so much, and given also in 2010, Israel has demonstrated there is no way it will allow a humanitarian aid ship to reach Gaza. I mean, what were your thoughts and feelings? Some will be asking, why did you make this journey? You know Israel is behaving this way. So why did you set out to do what your team did?
Well, the point is somebody's got to do something. And while we're pretty sure that we would never get to actually the shores, but we're doing something on behalf of the conscience of the world, to say we cannot sit by and just do nothing. And our part of this is we get vessels and we sail them. We've never sailed them during a genocide. We've never sailed them where there's been essentially 18 months of brutal attacks by Israel on Gaza. Most of the time we sail after an attack has ended, and then we sail to say we haven't forgotten you all in Gaza. This time we're sailing during military operations, which is very, very dangerous. And you have to hand it to the people who say, I'm willing to do it during this time. Because we ask them to write out their last will and testament and leave it with us, because it is a very dangerous thing. None of us would have ever anticipated, though, that someone, and I would say the Israeli military, would actually bomb the ship in the waters off Malta. That was just unbelievable that was the decision made, and that there, as you mentioned, there's not been an outcry of it. The ship left Tunis with only 18 people on board, 12 crew members, and then 6 non-crew members that we call participants. They're unarmed civilians that were accompanying the ship up to Malta, where we were putting on another almost 40 people from 22 countries who had made the decision that they were willing to risk their lives to be a symbol of the rest of the world that says that these genocidal acts must stop.
The one thing I wanted to get your thoughts on is a rumor or misinformation that's been spreading on social media by pro-Israeli activists, and they're claiming that the vessel was actually shipping weapons and not humanitarian aid. And the evidence for this is the crew preventing Maltese security officials from checking the ship itself, searching the ship itself, as though this is somehow evidence. So what's the real truth behind those allegations?
Well, first, Maltese officials never asked to board the ship until 3 days later. Initially, the only ship that was around the Conscience when the Conscience was burning was a tugboat, a fireboat that circled. And it's very interesting that the tugboat, fire vessel was out in the region around the Conscience an hour before the missiles hit the Conscience. And then when it was on fire, it did not come immediately to help the Conscience. It slowly circled around, taking almost an hour before it started spraying water on the Conscience, which is very interesting. I mean, the SOS signals had been sent out by the ship saying we have been attacked, we have a fire on board, and yet the one vessel that was there did not come immediately to the aid of it. After they started pouring water on it and the fire was under control, they said, we want to evacuate you. We want to evacuate you. The crew said, we are not going to be evacuated. This ship is not sinking. We have now controlled the fire. We're responsible for the safety of the boat. We have to stay on it. The participants that were on it, the non-crew participants, said, we trust our crew. We are not in danger now, and we do not care to be evacuated. And that was part of the propaganda, that we refused to cooperate with the officials. Well, it was a normal reaction of a crew that is not about to abandon the ship. And the reason we don't want a ship abandon our ships is because if you've got the Israelis that already bombed it, there are a lot of other ships out around in that international water area that could send very quickly on small boats operatives over to take over the ship and then bomb it from the inside. So we're always
Not only that, plant weapons, and then say, there we go, the smoking gun, we found something there, and therefore these guys were actually aiding and abetting terrorists, and that narrative could easily have blown up, even though there's no truth to that. Is that also why your team was very apprehensive about accommodating the Maltese government's request to fix the damage, repair the damage? Sorry, is that also one of the reasons?
Well, first is the request that of the Maltese government that a survey person come on board. And we wanted to make sure that we check the credentials of this survey agent, because if you're going to have somebody poking around all the areas of the ship, you want to make sure you know who they are and that you have your crew accompanying them with a camera watching everything that they're doing, because as you mentioned, the possibility of planting weapons on board the ship is, it's one of the standard things that the Israelis certainly accuse us of, but they've never found one weapon on any of the 35 ships that we have sent there. Not one weapon. I mean, we're so paranoid, so to speak, about this allegation of weapons. And besides, we're peaceful, nonviolent people. We don't use weapons. We use the fact that it is our spirit that is there to move a vessel, to try to stop the genocide or the various attacks that the Israelis have done. The only people that ever have weapons on our boat are the Israelis when they attack us.
And what has been the treatment of the Maltese officials since? I mean, there have been reports that they've mistreated some of your colleagues. Why do you think that is? And why? I'm just curious why they would be hostile to this initiative.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we're asking too. Why would they be hostile to it? I mean, it's a humanitarian mission. It's an unarmed civilian ship carrying not as much cargo as we had wanted, because we had already purchased a large amount of cargo that was to be placed on the Conscience in Malta, because it came from Tunis with not as much things on it as we wanted. So we had already purchased a lot of things that were going to be brought out by small boat with our participants. Actually the day of the attack, that's when we were going to board all the participants. But the day before the attack, in mid-afternoon, we were informed that the government of Palau, who had flagged the ship, had suddenly withdrawn the flag, which means you don't have the certification to sail on the high seas. And so, that was a shock to us. Why would Palau do that? And as the shipping agent that we had hired to help get the transportation for our participants out to the ship and bring out all the supplies that we wanted, he was mystified too. He said, I've never heard this, and I'm getting all sorts of phone calls from the Ministry of Transportation and people that normally are not concerned at all about the work that we do in supplying ships in the international waters. And they say now that your ship is illegal. It doesn't have the certification. We said, well, we've just been informed that the government of Palau, which is one of the tight hand-in-hand tiny Pacific island nations, Palau, Micronesia, Federated States of Micronesia.
Always votes in favor of Israel at the UN. One
Yeah,
of those.
well, they're part of what's called the Compact of Free Association,
That's right, yeah.
and the U.S. government gives them billions of dollars to have the defense rights to the whole swath of the Pacific. I know that because I lived 2 years in Micronesia, and I know very well what happens there. And the fact that the U.S. government told Palau, take that flag, and take it the afternoon before we were to board. And that cleared the deck, so to speak, I guess, for the Israeli military to go ahead and bomb the ship just after midnight the following morning.
So, I mean, you mentioned all kinds of people have been contacting and phoning, strange ones as well. Has the US government contacted you to see if you are safe? You're a citizen, you're an army veteran, you served for the country. What's the situation there? Have they made sure that you are safe as an American citizen, or have they not?
Well, and I'm also a U.S. diplomat. I
Yeah.
resigned in opposition to the war in Iraq 22 years ago. And it would be my former organization, the State Department, that should be reaching out to me as an American citizen. But I'll say there has been absolutely zero contact from the U.S. government to the 6 American citizens that were on board that ship. Not one peep has come from the U.S. government.
And and I guess, I mean, for a lot of Americans, that will raise a number of questions, or it should anyway. It begs the question, why is America not securing the safety of its own citizens? Why is America undermining its own freedoms with various pro-Israeli initiatives like the Boycott Act, which was pulled yesterday, but definitely there's over 30 states which are pushing boycotts of Israel or criminalizing boycotts of Israel, undermining the US Constitution, undermining American freedom. So there is a backlash to that by even the American right, and the fact that you are pro-Palestinian activist and you are now also demonized, that kind of reinforces the image of America as a country that's turning against its own citizens that are supporting Palestinians, and that's just quite alarming thing to hear, that you as an American may not be safe in your own country if you support the Palestinians. And I mean, how does that make you feel generally, especially you, given that you've served in the army as well?
Well, it makes me madder than hell, and they're not about to intimidate me. And it's just we have to stand up against this fascism that's going on right now, and the demonization of people that support Palestine, that say genocide is wrong. I mean, there are a lot of people that are going to hell over this. There are a lot of people who their conscience, who their morality is in the toilet on this thing, and we just have to take the high ground on it. We have to keep doing what we can to support the Palestinians. And I wish we had some vehicle to make our own government stop sending those weapons. We've tried everything in the world, and we have a few senators that will vote for the resolution of disapproval of weapons, but it's barely 1/5 of the U.S. Senate. We have a lot of our U.S. Congress is paid off by the Israeli lobby, by AIPAC. In fact, AIPAC has, we've heard from congressional offices, they have one person per office, and their whole job is to just keep in contact, and threaten people who actually will vote to say that Palestinians have a right to exist. Then those people will be primaried out of the position. And then we had that happen twice this last election with Cori Bush out of Missouri and Jamal Bowman out of New York.
That's right. Yeah. Returning back to the conscience, I mean, what's the situation now? Where is it now? And you mentioned investigation. Who is going to be conducting this investigation? I can't imagine any government or state taking on this responsibility. And who do you actually have faith and confidence in to be able to carry out this investigation? I mean, do you think can the UN get involved? Is there a body which you trust that you think should be carrying out a formal investigation into exactly what happened on the conscience?
Well, we certainly need forensic specialists that know about weapons and explosives, and they should be under the the umbrella of a group such as United Nations observers, and with participants from our campaign to be on board the boat too, to watch what's going on and to be able to verify what's found. So far, that project has not moved. The boat is still in international waters. It is under the command of the captain. And as far as the Maltese offer that they would repair the ship, but only in international waters, it would not be brought into the docks, excuse me, was a really interesting thing. In all my years of diplomacy, I have never heard of a nation where there was a incident like this that occurred in close to their territorial waters. One of the first statements saying, "Oh, we will pay for the repairs of it." It's almost like they are ashamed of what happened, and
Yeah.
they ought to be ashamed of what happened, because we know that from tracking the Israeli C-130 Hercules aircraft, it was flying in Maltese airspace for a good hour beforehand, before the attack, and it was flying over the Conscience. And we know the capabilities of that aircraft, which is to open up the back end of it and you can push out whatever you want. Drones that are, what they call loitering drones that can fly around, and then by remote control, you push a button and there goes the ordnance into the target, which has already been identified in the guidance procedures. The Maltese government has a lot to, I mean, they are complicit in this. There's no doubt about that. And other nations are too. I mean, the United States for sure is up to its eyeballs in this, and probably some other Western European countries have known about what was going on. We know the government of Palau, a tiny little Palau, was involved in it. And, it's a criminal act that was committed on a defenseless, unarmed civilian ship, and someone must be held accountable for that. Otherwise, as we see with what they're doing in Gaza, they just do whatever they want to, unless the international community says you can't do this, you can't bomb these boats.
So what next for the Freedom Flotilla Coalition itself? I mean, this was a major, well, maybe not a setback. I mean, it just shows again, from a PR point of view, Israel is out of control. It's become a maniacal state. It goes and bombs, vessels, humanitarian vessels in international waters. It's done so before. Knowing that Israel does that, knowing what's happening in Gaza as well, what is the next big thing for the coalition that you are part of? What are you guys thinking
Well,
about?
we'll sail more ships. We're not going to stop just because they bombed them. And that ship will be repaired. It will be brought back into service, and we have other ships that are available. And we will not stop. I mean, this is on behalf of the people of the world that can do nothing more. While it's important to be out on the streets every day, have protests every day, write letters to your congresspeople, all of that's important. But this little initiative of having boats on the seas challenging directly, really, it's at the heartstrings of millions of people. The amount of, it's just been overwhelming. All of the emails, the everything coming in saying thank you for what you're doing, and you guys are really, and gals are brave people, and everybody is. It's a part of this because we know the dangers that come with it, because we've seen it before, and now in this terrible incident of a bombing, it brings it home even more recently than looking back 10 years ago, where the Israelis killed 10 and wounded 50 on the Mavi Marmara.
I mean, all I can say is that it takes incredible courage for you to do what you're doing, and your team and your crew, because as you said, and as you know, Israel will not think twice about bombing a humanitarian vessel. It's done so before. It's done it many times, and especially in this current context where, as I said, Israel feels emboldened, feels like it has complete impunity. It can bomb 3, 4, 5 countries at the same time, and no one says anything. So under those conditions, if Israel was to kill 5-10 in a humanitarian vessel, I don't think people will bat an eyelid. As we saw in Gaza as well, it killed a number of a number of people on an ambulance and buried them. And then, of course, it changed the story afterwards. So under those conditions, I think what you're doing is an amazing and showing unbelievable courage. And I hope whatever you do, stay safe. And if people wanted to hear you speak, I mean, you're in the UK at the moment. What was your plan here? If they wanted to meet you, maybe are you doing a public event? How can they see you and speak to you?
Yeah, well, they can contact me through the Freedom Flotilla Coalition website, which is freedomflotilla.org. And I'll be here through next Thursday. I'm speaking both at Oxford and Cambridge on various of their union debates, and I certainly intend to bring the issue of what happened to us in Malta into both of the presentations, even though it's not the actual subject matter. But you can't let this thing pass without speaking as much about it as you can. So I'd be delighted to speak to groups here in the London area while I'm here.
And thank you so much. It was a real pleasure having you on MEMO Conversation. And viewers, do seek out Anna, and she's in the UK, and go and listen to her speak. Thank you so much. And thank you at home for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
This was Middle East Monitor Conversations, brought to you by the Middle East Monitor in London.